Hello, Kubrick Lover 1972 here with my weekly films I've seen over this past week. And of course, you're seeing this in the middle of next week because the last video you saw of one of these weekly videos was probably a week and a half ago, I would say, I think. So, my apologies for not getting this out sooner. But the reason why it's being done now on a Wednesday is because um, the last movie I watched, I brought three movies from the library, and the last movie I watched, I hadn't listened to the commentary, and then I thought the other two movies, which were anime movies by Hayao Miyazaki, I thought the special features would be short and they were long, so it took me a while to get through those. And by the time all that was finished, it was like 2 a.m. or something, and I could have recorded a video, but I didn't know, maybe I'd have to do some editing of it or put some text, on something I forgot if I did the video. And of course, uploading it would take a while, even though I could record the video and then upload it today. So I said, I'll just do it today. So here it is. Anyways, I've got five movies, I believe, to tell you about. And let's get started. First movie is this is the second week. Well, this will be the third week that's happening on Shudder, but last Friday was the second week of the Joe Bob Briggs Last Drive-In, and anyways, he does two. He does a double feature both on that Friday on the streaming horror site Shudder, Shudder. Just so you know how I'm saying it. I don't know if people think Shudder instead of Shudder. Anyways, so he's doing this Last Drive-In series because because he was pretty popular. He got a lot of good press doing his Last Drive-In marathon last year. They wanted him to come back. A lot of people using Shudder wanted him to come back. So uh, so back as you could see, I decided to re-edit the video and add in that Monty Python Holy Grail intermission music. Um, the reason is because I thought maybe it'd be kind of funny. Um, I did it last week because what was the reasoning behind that? For some reason, I added it in. Oh, I had to clear my throat. My throat was getting dry, so I had to have a glass. Have some water to drink. I got some water here, but but the reason why I stopped this time was because I thought I had watched 5 films this week. It's not. That's not true. I had watched 7. So so. Anyways, let me get to it. Let me just say, as far as coming attractions, or however you want to put it, I would like to do a series on depressing films because I enjoy depressing films. Sometimes, real life doesn't always give us, lemonade. It gives us lemons or whatever. And I would just think it would be a pretty interesting video to watch. But I think in order for me to do it, I have to watch maybe some films I've already seen that are depressing, but also films that I haven't seen that are depressing. So I'm thinking of directors like Fassbinder would be one of those types of directors, and I have some of his stuff that I haven't watched yet, like 8 Hours Don't Make a Day, and I have Veronica Voss, and I have Lola, and there's Quirrell on. I just signed up for the Criterion Channel. I think it was a good move because I have a lot of Criterions. I can maybe save a little money, even though I have a gift certificate from Criterion for spending so much on their flash sales. They gave me a $50 gift certificate, and then I have the two what do you call them? Barnes and Noble gift certificate cards. So I gotta use those sometimes. But I'm thinking of waiting until the Barnes and Noble sale in July. Might as well save money. And I shouldn't be in a rush. I have so much stuff to watch. So it might be a while on the depressing films. I'd like to do it, but I don't know exactly when I'll do it. Garage band videos. Maybe I'll put something up at some point. I'm not saying that I'll be a long ways away because I do have a few files on my computer right now that are not on my external hard drive. Some ones that haven't been finished, like I don't know, 4 or 5 of them maybe. Maybe it's 4 or maybe it's 5, something like that. Okay, so have I tackled everything besides what I'm going to talk about now? I guess so. Okay, so anyways, Joe Bob Briggs, he's on Fridays now on Shudder, doing double features, and at 9 p.m. And last week was the second week on Shudder, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Anyways, the first film he did last week was a film called Q, the Winged Serpent, which came out in 1982. And it was directed by Larry Cohen, and he died recently. And I saw a documentary about Larry Cohen on Shudder, which I recommend people to watch. But I'm going to voice like my opinion about him and another director who's also going to be covered in this week's video, and sort of what I think of their filmmaking style. Larry Cohen, when he shot films like when he shot them in the 80s or something, I think that's 82. He could do things like have cause a like a riot scene or something in a New York City street. Have he could have people chase each other down the street, and there wouldn't be any cause for alarm. He could do risky kind of stuff, like people going through what do you call that? The luggage areas of an airport. Going through where the luggage goes and chasing a good guy chasing a bad guy through where the suitcases go through in the airport. If you did that today, security wouldn't allow you to do that. Things like in the New York City streets, you can. I don't know if you could shoot guns then, but like just doing things that you wouldn't be able to get away with today. You need permits. You probably need some money, maybe some muscle. I don't know muscle, but some prominence. Because in Q, the Winged Serpent, one of the actors is a windshield he's a he washes windows, and he's washing the one of the windows of the Chrysler Building in New York City, and I guess he's in real life. He was a real life window washer. So, but I mean, some of the things he does, he couldn't do now. But the criticism for me, comes from his. He shot the movie. I think he shot it really fast, maybe within a few weeks or a month or something, maybe. And I have to say, I didn't catch all of the movie. I was tired that day, so I fell asleep during some of it. And Joe Bob Briggs is really even if you don't like the movies you watch, maybe he has to choose from the catalog of films that are on Shudder's website. But the information he provides and the trivia he provides for each film is very fascinating. Also, just his observations on things in general are worth the price of having Shudder alone. As not just I would say, but other people watching Shudder. You know, some people watched him, I guess, in the 80s and the 90s on cable. I didn't have that. I didn't have cable in those days. Still don't have cable, but I think I saw some of those shows he did, creature features, whatever they were, on YouTube channel videos. So that's how I think I first became aware of him. And I saw him at the Alamo Drafthouse. Joe Bob Briggs, he was promoting, I believe his favorite film is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I think he showed it during Dinners of Death, which was a Thanksgiving special. He also had a Christmas special too, but and I've yet to watch all the Thanksgiving special. I only caught parts of it because I was up at my cousin's house for Thanksgiving, so I couldn't catch all of the movies. But I did see one movie. I saw part of one movie. I think it's called Dead Alive or something by, I think, Takashi Miike or whatever. And there's a really disgusting scene in it, and that's sort of what has held me off a little while from it. But I'm planning on watching it at some point, I would say. But my criticism of Larry Cohen and this other director that I'll get to, and I think I'll get to him sooner rather than later, because I was going to tackle his films last, but I think I'll approach them after I've talked about the other film on Shudder that Joe Bob Briggs covered. But it's just this like lackluster sense of, I mean, it has a certain fun to it. The Winged Serpent, he shot all the footage, and then Joe Bob Briggs told the special effects guys, they said, what do you want us to shoot or whatever? He says, no, I shot all the footage. You just throw the serpent in there. So my criticism is that it's not very finessed. It's not very thought out enough, or it's kind of flawed looking. It's kind of cheesy. It's not. Brian De Palma talks about lazy filmmaking. Like not choosing like when De Palma shot Untouchables, near the star of the movie, there's a crane shot above Al Capone, played by De Niro, and he's being shaved, and the crane goes down. He could have shot that on the ground level, right next to him. He could have shot it down below, but the fact that he used a crane and went down, and he put thought into his shots. He didn't just throw a camera, phone it in, and then cut it fast, and that's that. In a way, you can admire Larry Cohen because he's getting the film done, but he's just doing it in what I regard as a haphazard fashion, kind of lazy, kind of enjoyable in its laziness, but still it's kind of lazy. That's why I admire directors like Fincher, like Kubrick, like Hitchcock. Hitchcock, like he said the most embarrassing part of making a movie was, well, not embarrassing. The most boring part of making a movie was the shooting aspect. In fact, when he shot, I think it was Psycho, there was a crew person that was doing work for him, and without even looking into the camera, he said, "Oh no, you've got the camera. You don't have the lens. Whatever. You don't have this adjusted there, and you don't have the camera um, put here, and you don't have the tripod there." He knew exactly what he needed, what he wanted, and yeah. So this laziness is just kind of annoying, So, but it is kind of fun. I guess you have to leave your judgment at the door. So with that, that tackles Winged Serpent. It's like a something from the Mayan times. I mean, he throws in like I think they go to the Museum of Natural History or something like that in New York City, um, and yeah, and there's a person that's shot at the end, and that sort of has a certain kind of cheesiness to it, but it sort of a layer of fun to it. But so it stars Michael Moriarty and it stars David Carradine. And David Carradine would later go on to play Bill in Kill Bill, and as Richard Roundtree. I think Richard Roundtree was Seven, and that's of course Fincher. And of course Fincher, like with Seven, he used he might have not have had the most up to date stuff. Like Fight Club, was really well thought out and advanced and all. So was Seven, but like I think some of the shots. I mean, this gets tricky here because a low budget film like RoboCop, I like RoboCop a lot, but like when they were shooting this film, RoboCop, they had a limited amount of money, so they had to think creatively. So I do admire low budgets. I just think you have to think a little, put a little more thought into it. Maybe that's what I'm saying, because in RoboCop, the police department, the garage or something, they where the police cars are. I don't think it was a real police garage or something. It's sort of the same with Seven. It's just when they're taking what's his name, John Doe, out to the last killing site, and they got the helicopters going and everything, but I think it wasn't a real police station that they came out of. So thinking outside that way, cutting things from different areas and all that, making you think it's the same area, that works. But just this Winged Serpent seemed kind of lazy to me. So for that reason, and Richard Roundtree is the other guy who's in it. So but it was sort of fun. So I'm gonna give it, because of its funness, its amusement, 3.5 stars. I know I'm going on long, and I've only been on the first movie. So let's get to the second. The second one is called Society. It came out in 1989, and it was directed by Brian Yuzna. Now this film, it takes place in the well-to-do area of California, the Los Angeles area. I think it's Beverly Hills, but it was shot in another area of California with, I think, older houses, as Joe Bob Briggs. So some of this commentary I'm providing you with came from Joe Bob Briggs himself. Not all of it. Some of it is my opinion, like the laziness and all that. But anyways, the main character, he's wealthy. His parents are wealthy. He's pretty photogenic, I would say. He's pretty. He has a good looking girlfriend and all this stuff, and he's in high school, and but something's not quite right. And this man, well, not man, this young man or whatever, he's trying to gain the affection, the interest of the character's sister to him. But he's saying to the main character, he's saying, well, something along the lines of things are not what you quite think they are. Um, and so things get stranger and stranger. And it's this affluent, wealthy society of people, and he's starting to suspect things like, well, like what does he suspect? It's kind of hard to remember all of this stuff. I mean, it's kind of amazing because I remember the Q-wing serpent stuff, but um, as far as society goes, he just starts questioning things. This main character, this young teenager, so he's questioning things, and things are not adding up, and he's getting kind of paranoid about things. And because of the ending, I'm giving it a little bit of a more of a push. I saw this originally at the Jacob Burns Film Center for the Halloween Marathon one year. And I saw it in the middle of the night, and fell asleep during it, and I woke up during it. And I'm still not bowled over by it, I would say. But the ending is really nuts. So the ending itself is worth watching it, I think. And here comes more information from Joe Bob Briggs. It did well in some countries like Germany, maybe it was France, I don't know, or Italy. It was like 3 countries in Europe. It did very well there, but it basically bombed here in America. But anyways, what these people are in this society is not what it truly is, as you will notice at the end of the film. But I won't tell you what that is. I think it's worth seeing. And if you have Shudder, you can watch it. You can watch it by, and I highly recommend it. Watching it through the lens of Joe Bob Briggs' show. So just go back, go to series on Shudder on the top of the screen, and then look for Joe Bob Briggs. Click on that, and just go to the films and click on them. And while you watch each film, either on Friday night, or whether you watch a repeat of it later on, if you watch it with the Joe Bob Briggs commentary, well, he doesn't speak during the film, but there's breaks in between the film. There's no commercials, but there's breaks while you're watching the movie. So he stops the film for a few minutes, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe more like 5 minutes. And he talks a little about the film and also other things too. So what he has to say is pretty significant. So, okay, so I am gonna go to the bottom of my list first before I tackle the middle. The reason being, I saw these films, these next 2 films, before I saw the other 3. But I forgot about them when I started off recording this video, and that's why I stopped the video, put that intermission music in. And I thought it'd be kind of funny instead of just going back and re-recording again. I don't know. You tell me. Anyways, these next 2 were also from a streaming site called Mubi, M-U-B-I. They're both directed by Abel Ferrara. And so we'll start off with the first one, which is King of New York, which came out in 1990. And it stars Christopher Walken as a mafia godfather guy who's just got out of prison, and one of the guys that works for him, played by Lawrence Fishburne, or credited at that time as Larry Fishburne, because that before that he'd done Apocalypse Now, of course, where he was credited as Larry Fishburne. Of course, when you get to The Matrix, he's changed his name to Lawrence. Anyways, I don't know if Giancarlo Esposito was a bad guy or a good guy. I can't recall. I did meet Giancarlo Esposito at one point in my life, few years back, I went to the Kent Film Festival in Kent, Connecticut, and I think the name of his movie was called Gospel Hill, which he directed and starred in. Um, Julia Stiles was also in it, and I can't remember anybody else who was in it. And you might know him better from the show Breaking Bad. He played Gus, the guy who owns the chicken restaurants, and is what's a character by Bryan Cranston? Walter White, is that the character? But anyways, that's who Giancarlo Esposito is. And Wesley Snipes is also in this film. He plays a cop who's a partner of David Caruso. And anyways, Christopher Walken's character, he's basically trying to establish himself and make the city his own turf, and he's trying to, control the situation by doing things in order for that to happen. I'm trying not to spoil the film is what I'm trying to do here. And anyways, let's see. So anyways, he finds out about this hospital that needs funding, and he'd like to fund it his way, which means in a non-legal manner, and that's basically the plot of the film. And it has a nice ending to it. I like how it ends. It's a tragic ending, but it's probably the only way the way it could end. I hope I didn't give it away there. So I give it 3.5 stars. And I'll discuss the problem in just a second. The second movie I saw of his on Mubi was a film called 4:44, as in like 4:44 a.m. 4:44, Last Day on Earth, which came out in 2011. And it's directed by Abel Ferrara as well. It stars Willem Dafoe, some other actors and actresses I'm not bothering to say because I don't know who they are. But one of the actresses I also mentioned because she's Anita Pallenberg, and she was the girlfriend of, I don't know if she was ever a wife of one of the Rolling Stones, but she was a girlfriend, I think, of both, Keith Richards, Brian Jones, I'm pretty sure, and Mick Jagger. All three of them, I think she had relationships with. And she stars as one of the mothers of the or the mother of Willem Dafoe's love interest in the film. And so this film is about the end of the world. I think it was shot on red cameras. It has a very video-like feel to it. Most of the film consists of staying within this apartment, and it's a studio apartment. The Willem Dafoe character, let's see, what is he? He's a writer? I'm not sure what he does, but his I don't know if it's his wife or girlfriend. She's an artist, so she paints on the floor. She's doing painting. And you see images of things like Catholics at St. Mark's Square in Rome. You see shrouded people, I think it's Mecca. And you see the Dalai Lama talking about cosmic whatever. You see a guy dressed up. Maybe he's a Hare Krishna. Maybe he's not a Tibetan Buddhist. But he's talking about spiritual matters and that kind of thing. And you see Joseph Campbell talking about myth and all that stuff. And you see Al Gore being interviewed by Charlie Rose. I don't know if people who are watching this video who are not Americans, if they know who Charlie Rose is. It's just a talk show, which was on public television. And he just interviewed Al Gore's on that particular clip that they show in the movie, and he's talking about global warming. So, anyways, but basically they're trying to see how they would deal with the end of the world. Trying to live life to your fullest before it ends. So that's like trying to come to grips with what your life means when your life is at your end, and that's everybody on the earth, you know. And it's done in a very low tech, low budget way, but he tries to make it look very big in a way. But yeah, so in that way, it's kind of interesting. I find it an interesting experiment. You know, even though you see like outside, I think I've been by it. It was shot in New York City, like the other one. I it was like it must be the Village, but I think I've been down there. Maybe it's near where the Tribeca Film Festival happened, and he's on a roof. Willem Dafoe's on a roof apartment, and at a certain point he leaves the apartment. He comes back, but you see cars going by down there, and I don't know. Maybe you can sort of tell um, well, the artificiality of the film by seeing the cars down there. Maybe it sort of destroys the credibility of it. So, anyways, let me get to my gripe about Abel Ferrara. I saw him interviewed on. Maybe I've seen him interviewed on more than one television show. But my gripe with him is, I mean, here we go with lazy filmmaking again. He's like, he was saying, I think it was on, it was a models show. There was a time in the '90s, I think it was in the '90s when this happened. There was a time in the '90s when all sorts of people were doing talk shows. You know, Whoopi Goldberg was doing one. Um, all sorts of people were doing talk shows, and basically they were short-lived. Chevy Chase did one. It was basically riding the crest of this big wave after Johnny Carson left. So, you know, in the end, it would be Arsenio Hall, and then he left after a little while, and then it was Jay Leno and David Letterman. Dennis Miller was on for a while, but he didn't manage to survive, you know. But anyways, I'm digressing. So anyways, he was talking on, I think it was a model, and I can't remember the model. She had a show, anyways. So she was interviewing him, and I think it was his show, her show. But he was talking about like, let's get this. If I make a movie, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to make it. So I guess with the 444 Last Day on Earth, I guess he gets it filmed done because he gets the technology and he, you know, gets it done. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't, which is kind of an achievement, I guess, because if you're making movies, you want to get them done. I mean, like writing the great American novel, lots of people talk about writing a novel, but they never do it. So, so he shoots movies, but the thing to me is he's kind of too fast and not thorough, in my opinion, and that makes his film suffer. And my hearing's bad, but in King of New York, I don't think he did any ADR, audio dialogue replacement. You know, like people in the booth going in dubbing the dialogue, so you can't hear everything they're saying, which is really annoying. So I call that lazy filmmaking, and so, but I still find it interesting. An interesting idea and an interesting film. So I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. So it's a little better than good. So I think I've covered that enough. So now we go to two films by I don't know if I'm going to say his name correctly, Hayao Miyazaki. The first film I watched his this past week or so was Howl's Moving Castle. So now I have some physical copies here to show you. These are from the library that I work at. And like I said in the previous clip before that intermission music, it took me a long while to watch all this stuff, you know. So, anyways, so I watched the special features on this last night. So this is about let's see, it's about young woman who falls in love with this guy, Hal, who has a castle that moves. Um, and it's very, it blew my mind, this film. It really blew my mind visually, also orally too, with the sound. Um, how this, when you walk out of when you walk out of the door of the castle, if you move the doorknob a certain way, it turns it to a different color on the wheel above it, and you come out of you come out in a different world for each way you turn the knob of the door. And there's some interesting comical characters in this too, like the character that moves the house is a demon, and he has this weird, funny voice. And you see the guy who played him featured on the special features. So it is really a fascinating movie. And there's a young boy who lives in the castle, and there's a old woman that called the Witch of the Waste, who takes this young woman that's the main character, Sophie, and changes her into an old woman. But she managed, but for some reason they they coexist with each other at this castle in the end. And Hal has like magical powers, and they fall in love, and you find out um, how things will work themselves out towards the end, like whether things will work out well or not. I guess you could say. I haven't watched this since I think it was last week. I can't remember. Uh, let's see, was it? I think it was this weekend I watched this. Um, but it just blew my mind visually. I highly recommend this movie. Um, I have Spirited Away, and I think that blew my mind too. So I really recommend this. I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. It's based on the book by Diana Wynne Jones, who is a British children's author. And in the special features, she says it's not quite like the book, but it's not quite unlike the book as well. So it really is a fascinating movie. I highly recommend it. It will blow your mind visually. I mean, even if you don't care about anime, it will blow your mind. So I highly recommend this movie. And this behind the scenes, if you like watching behind the scenes, it's pretty fascinating how they show you how they move the castle, and how they get the sounds, and how they create this like early 20th century futuristic European looking city, and how they create all the technology for that city. It's just fascinating. Um, Next one was another Miyazaki. Um, I liked it a lot. And I think it was his first or second film that he did for Studio Ghibli, which I think he created Studio Ghibli. Um, I guess it was a manga. I don't know too much about Japanese comic books, but I guess it was a manga. And anyways, it's called Nausicaa, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and I sort of think, um, it might be. Let me see. When did it come out? Oh, Howl's Moving Castle, by the way, came out in 2004. It's a huge financial success. I think it made maybe it was $100,000 more than the budget. Maybe no, $100 million. What am I talking about? 100,000. Um, but anyways, this particular movie, the area where this young woman lives, there's no pollution, and the other areas of the world have been polluted and covered in maybe toxins. Yes, toxins. And their valley gets invaded by another group of people, another nation, or whatever you want to call them. And also another nation is involved, where she meets this young boy that she falls in love with. but and it's kind of complex as to like who's the hero and who's the villain in this. It's also about preserving the natural order of things. So I think it's sort of a, it's the right word would be a harbinger of what um, of saving the environment long before it was a big thing. Um, and she's there's a lot of flying in this movie. She has this thing she flies on, and she's very in tune with nature and with animals and insects, and um, she manages to she can contact these insects called ohms, which have all these eyes and have this like beetle scaly body. So so I didn't like this film as much as Howl's Moving Castle. I thought some of the animation was kind of cheesy. I don't know if cheesy is the right word. I mean, because the animation Howl's Moving Castle was unbelievably superb. Um, that was a little under, maybe for lack of a better word, primitive in a sense. But it was really good. I enjoyed this. So I'm gonna give it 4 stars. Yeah, 4 stars. Yeah. And to close off the video, we've got a movie that was recommended to me, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, starring Michael Caine and Steve Martin, and another person, another actress, or another actor or actress, a person called Glenn Headley. Cinematography on this film was by Michael Ballhaus, who he was Werner Fass. I don't know if I'm pronouncing German right. He was Fassbinder's cinematographer. He shot one of my favorite movies. He probably shot, well, he shot Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant. I don't know if he shot Beware of Holy Horror. I think he did. I think he shot World on the Wire, and all those films are fantastic, which he did for Fassbinder. But I know he did Bitter Tears, and the first film he also, when he maybe it was because Fassbinder died, he decided to work with Scorsese because Fassbinder died, I believe, in the early '80s. I believe of a drug overdose, and first film he did with Scorsese was After Hours. And I was at the Connecticut Film Festival one year, and there's a workshop on sound, and one of the people that did the workshop, that facilitated the workshop, worked on that movie After Hours. So he worked. He was there with Michael Bauhaus and Scorsese. But anyways, so Frank Oz directed this. Frank Oz you would know as the voice of Mrs. Piggy in The Muppets and Yoda in Star Wars. And I think he helped Jim Henson out of The Dark Crystal. I think so, but I'm not positive. But he's also directed some movies as well. And he did the commentary on this, which I listened to, which I guess I found somewhat entertaining. And I did, let me see, what was my rating on this film? Okay, yeah, it was, so anyways, what this film is about is Michael Caine is this con man who cons women to give money to him, and he pretends to be like a prince or whatever. And while I was on a train, I think going back to his house, he comes across Steve Martin's character, who's unrefined, uh, according to the way he thinks, and but he's also a con man as well. And eventually, after noticing how each other works, um, Steve Martin's character asks the let's see, Lawrence is the name Michael Caine's character is, and Steve Martin's character is, what is it, Frank? I think it's Frank. he asks, "Can you help me become like you? Can we, work together?" And Michael Caine doesn't really want anything to do with him, so he just basically works, says, "Okay," you know, um, dresses him up, makes him, and works, does a scheme with him of trying to bilk a woman out of her money. I think bilk means to take away or something. And but then he doesn't get a cut of the money after the con is done. And but anyways, they manage again to decide to do a bet against one another, against this woman played by Glenn Headley. And the bet is to get $50,000 out of her. And so the Steve Martin character pretends he's a a paraplegic. Pretends that he's a injured injured veteran, injured military veteran that can't use his legs, so he's using a wheelchair. And the Michael Caine character pretends to be a German psychiatrist or psychologist, and he gets that because Steve Martin makes up the story that he needs money for psychologist treatment. But Michael Caine finds out about this and he works it to his advantage. So they're basically working off one another, trying to, one gets ahead of the other guy in scheming how to get more closer to the woman's money, and then it goes to the other guy and back and forth sort of thing. But anyways, there's sort of a surprise with all this at the end, and I won't give it away. And I think it's worth a watch. They did things like they shot on a beach in a particular film, in a particular part of France for this film. And it's busy at that time period. And so all the beaches would be busy to shoot on. And there's like a lot of nude bathing in it. Well, not in the film, but like in that place, in that tourist area. So in order to shoot it on the beach and get no people on it, they had to build one basically. And they had to create some sets. I find that stuff fascinating because like the house that the Michael Caine character lives in, this mansion or whatever you want to call it, a villa. The people that own the villa said, you can shoot around the villa, but you can't shoot inside. So the interior parts of the villa were a set. So, and the train that the Michael Caine character and the Steve Martin character meet on is a set as well, and that's pretty fascinating. A lot of mention of Michael Bauhaus's use of light and how he creates moving patterns of light going across the windows of the train to make it look like it's moving. So I guess and I give it 3.5 stars. So that does it for this week. I'll just briefly recap these movies. So Q the Winged Serpent, I give 3.5 stars. Society, I give 3.5 stars. King of New York, I give 3.5 stars. 444 Last Day on Earth, I give 3.5 stars. Howl's Moving Castle, I give 4.5 stars. Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind, I give 4 stars. And finish off with Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, I give it 3.5 stars. Okay, so there's a book I want to finish that I'm borrowing from the library. I'm kind of holding it out for a long time. I don't know if really anybody's aware the title, or know the book's there, because I took it before, I guess, it circulated. Well, it's circulating. It's just not on the new bookshelf. So it's a book called The Birth of Loud. It's about the rivalry between Leo Fender, the creator of the Fender guitar, and Les Paul, who created the Gibson Les Paul. So, because I'm interested in that, because I have a Epiphone Les Paul, which is like the Gibson Les Paul, and I have a Fender Squier Stratocaster. So okay, so I've gone on long enough. This video is going to be an hour long, but I hope you enjoyed it. And I should have said at the start, if you want to fast forward, go ahead. But anyways, that does it for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye now.